Hello and welcome to the Cinema Savvy Movie Podcast, the channel for film reviews, discussions and everything in between. I'm Chris Garner, joined with my co-host George Aldridge, and on today's show we're going to be bringing you our review on Pixar's latest film, their 15th animated feature, Inside Out. I know this film came out a month or two ago in the US, it's just come out for us, so that's why we're a bit late to the party on this one. Later in the show we'll once again have another fun round of film fights as well as our recommended movie segment. Before all that, make sure you follow us at Facebook at facebook.com/cinemasavvy, on Twitter /cinema_savvy, and we're on Letterboxd as well /cinema_savvy. So, get involved, stick with the channel as it grows and grows throughout the summer months and onwards. But first, as always, we kick off our show with the week in movie news. So, George, what have we got first?
The first bit of news is the most inevitable bit of news of the summer. Jurassic World is getting its sequel, and they've penciled in at June 22nd, 2018, which was fairly obvious. I think everyone knew it was coming.
Yep, and I think that's a good time for it. It's not too dissimilar to what we had this year with it, but as well, Jurassic World has become the third highest grossing film of all time. It's sitting at just over 1.5 billion, yeah, 1.5 billion, wow. I keep saying this every time we bring up news of Jurassic World. Like, I didn't see this coming, and most other people didn't see it coming. I think we made our predictions one video before it just came out, and I think I predicted that it would sit at about a 700 million worldwide at the end of its run, and yeah, it's made quite considerably more than that. So, I mean, I didn't think the film was that great, but I know a lot of people did. People clearly love dinosaurs, so of course, if it's going to hit that much money on the budget that was done, a sequel, as you said, was inevitable. So, yeah, I guess 2018 is a good release date for it.
Except the fact it comes out, I think, a month after the Han Solo film, so wouldn't be surprised if it's got a knock. And it's just, I think it's like 8 weeks after Avengers 3, which I don't really care about. But that's blatantly going to get moved anyway for Star Wars, but that's for another story.
Yeah, so, but I mean, this is just like a sort of benchmark one at the minute, isn't it? And yeah. I'm sure it'll move around that. It'll still make a killing, though. And then our next bit of news, onto Fox this time. They say that an X-Men and Fantastic Four crossover may be in the works, or it's still on the cards. I think this has been predicted for a long time. When they first announced that a Fantastic Four reboot was coming out, this idea was floating around, and I think they made a statement back then around it. Since then, it quietened down, but I mean, you look at the advertisement and the marketing for Fantastic Four, and they plaster all over it from the studios that bought you X-Men Days of Future Past. I know that's a marketing thing, so people have a familiar film, so they go and see Fantastic Four, but if they've got two comic book properties owned by the same company, and you look what Marvel's doing, and you look what everyone else is trying to do with all these cinematic universes and stuff, it makes sense they're going to try and do that. It's all going to depend on how Fantastic Four does, I think. If audiences still don't take to it, I don't think they'll probably go ahead with it, and obviously we'll have Deadpool, so I think they'll focus on merging him with the X-Men universe, but I mean, I guess I'd like to see it. If the tones are the same, sure, why not, but it all depends if it's a good film.
Yeah, it's an interesting one. I think if it's a hit, I reckon they'd have their own film. If it's not, I could just imagine just saying we'll take them in an X-Men film or something like that. So it's one of them, but it's incredibly inevitable, especially as the comics cross over so much. So they might as well use what they've got the rights for, and Chris Fox only care about having the rights. They'll get their 7-year bullshit out of it. So I'm sure that they'll definitely appear even if it makes 10p at the box office.
I mean, I get that Marvel are crossing all over the films like that now, and that's working for them. I personally like standalone superhero things. That's why Marvel's series Daredevil is just one of my favourite things, like, on TV ever made. Like, yeah, you have your references, but it's like the new Ant-Man film as well. They don't keep smacking you in the face with the references. So maybe just because they'll have two properties of just X-Men and Fantastic Four, a crossover will work better than obviously Marvel that's got loads of properties. But I would kind of like to see them separate. I don't think they need to be together, but we'll have to see how it goes.
Yeah, and I think with X-Men, to be fair, they're basically just 4 mutants, so
yeah,
it's incredibly easy for them to go into that universe.
And I mean, you look at Days of Future Past, and the character of Sunspark was basically the Human Torch, so it's not like we haven't seen that before.
And the next bit of news for the sequel to Bad Neighbours 2, which one of us found out that had a film 10 minutes ago.
Guilty as charged. Yeah.
Chloe Grace Moretz has been cast. For me, who was a big fan of the original film, I thought it was a lot better than I thought it would be. I actually like Zac Efron in something for the first ever time because he's not just a kid anymore. He's actually funny. It's gonna work. I mean, she's great in Kick-Ass. She's great in almost everything. And a film like this, get her into an R-rated comedy, it's going to be great. And she's at the right age to do something like that. So it'll be really interesting to see what she does with Zac Efron, Seth Rogen, etc., etc. Just watch the original. It's a funny film, but I think the potential, the sequel's never as good. But I really hope this is because the first one was so much better than I thought it'd be.
Yeah, well, as you said in the intro, I have not seen the original. That film, for me, just completely dropped under the radar. I'm not massively into the Seth Rogen style comedy films that come out. Nothing against them in particular. That's just not my style of comedy, really. But I mean, Chloe Grace Moretz is one of the best. I don't even want to say up and coming actresses now. I mean, she's already made her mark, I think, in the acting world. She's fantastic in everything she's in. So I'm sure her inclusion will be good in it. But then again, now I'm not saying it's as bad as this, but I believe she was also in movie 43, which is infamously terrible. So I'm sure it's not going to be on the scale of that, but that wasn't her fault for how that film turned out. I'm sure she'll be great in it, and I think she does have good comedy chops as well as serious when she wants to. So yeah, I'm behind this. I just probably need to see the first one so I can get more on board and have more to say about this bit of news. But yeah.
Yeah, it should be good. But the next one is a kind of pointless one. I think it's stupid. They've announced an emoji film based off the button you press on your phone.
Yeah, pretty much. I don't see how they're going to make a feature out of this, but then again, I mentioned this before we hit record. When I first heard that they were going to make a Lego movie, I scoffed at that and was like, Lego movie? You're going to make like a film about like a toy line? And look how that turned out. It's one of my favourite animated movies of all time. So I'm not going to completely rule it out. The concept is a bit dumb, and it's just sort of cashing in on a phase at the minute, like obviously with like texting and stuff. So I guess we'll see how it turns out. I don't know whether it's going to be something like the human world and then it goes into like the phones and tablets and they have their own kingdom. I don't know how it's going to do. I don't believe we've got a director yet or a studio who's making it or anything like that. So I'm not going to rule it out completely. I'll wait till a trailer. But on the surface, yes, the concept is just ridiculous.
I think it might as well have been Inside Out, but they've clearly lost that battle. And the other picture sounds like Wreck-It Ralph, and they've also lost that battle. I don't know, maybe it'll be good, we don't know. You're right, you said earlier, it might just be Pac-Man.
Yeah,
We
yeah,
don't
pretty
know.
much.
But then look at Pixels.
Yeah, we'll have to wait and see on that one. But on to other news. Disney, on their slew of live-action remakes of their 2D animated features, they've confirmed their next one, that they're going to be working on a Sword in the Stone live-action feature. I've been like a broken record on all of these that we've done news on, so I've said where I stand on these. I don't think they're necessary. I think that they take away from the 2D film. It's almost like they're neglecting the 2D one just so people watch these in the future. I think the 2D ones hold up completely fine even now to this day, and Sword and Stone is a great film from them. I can see how it would work on a live action though. I mean, it's the story of King Arthur and there's some creative things. There's a scene in the 2D one I was mentioning to you earlier where Merlin fights the villain of the film called Mad Madam Mim, and they have a sort of battle of magic spells where they keep transforming themselves into different animals, and that's probably the best bit of the film. It's really creative, so I can see that done well in a live action, but I just don't think it needs doing. I mean, what are we going to get to eventually? We're going to have like a Lion King live action remake and stuff like that. I just think that they're getting a bit out of hand with it.
Well, you can get Andy Serkis, the Lion King one, but yeah.
That's
Um,
true. That's true.
yeah, it's an odd one. I mean, I'm not too familiar, but I think I saw it when I was really young, but it's one of them, even though it's King Arthur and stuff, I'm sure, I swear there's a film in production now, so it's nothing we haven't seen before, but it's just going to be one of them where the kids will all like it.
Yeah.
And it'll be a hit, like they all are, but it won't be anything special like the majority of them are.
And the next bit of news we have is Benicio del Toro has been offered the lead villain role in Star Wars Episode 8, which is actually pretty awesome.
Yeah, and I mean, Benicio del Toro is a great actor. We've seen him in he didn't have much of a role in Guardians of the Galaxy, and he was kind of flamboyant in that. But you watch The Usual Suspects as well, and I'm aware that he's been in loads of other films, and he's played villains before, and he's like really intense as a character. So although it hasn't been confirmed that he's taken the role, the fact that it's been offered to him, it just shows again, and we keep saying this, that the talent that Disney are going after for Star Wars, like, I think it's in good hands. So yeah, I'm really looking forward to see this. But the fact that they're saying he's been offered a main villain role for Episode 8, without going into, well, I haven't like looked at spoilers and stuff, but it does make me concerned of what they're gonna do with Kylo Ren, who's going to be our villain for Episode 7. Like, is he going to die at the end, and that's why we're going to have a new villain for 8? I don't know, but it has made me question that a little bit.
I don't know, but I think that they've got a plan. I said, he could be a good guy for all we know.
Yeah.
Anything can happen, and we'll find out on December the 18th.
Definitely. And then in our next bit of news, our director for the Minecraft movie has been confirmed. I'm going to try and pronounce his name. Rob McElhenney, I think. You said has some involvement with Always Sunny in Philadelphia, and I think, if it's the guy I think it is, he plays a character called Mac in it. And if that's the case, then I'm completely behind this, because I'm a huge fan of Always Sunny in Philadelphia. I think it's one of the best comedy series on the TV. His character's hilarious, and he's the director of Always Sunny, and he works with the cast in a really great way. He has a lot of improv and stuff like that. Obviously, this is going to be a major studio film with it being Minecraft, but more so than the Emoji Movie, I think I can compare this to Lego Movie. I think there is a lot you could do with this, in that it's a very creative world and the characters and stuff like that. So I think you could tether a story to it. So I haven't played Minecraft myself. I've seen a lot of videos on the internet. I know it's got a huge fan base. It's sold millions, so I'm sure it'll do well. And it depends how Warcraft does. But we might start be getting into good video game movies with this.
Yeah, I think this is a bad one because I've never got into it or played it. I know you kind of build squares or blow them up or stuff like that. I think someone aimed at the young kids because I think it's massive for the kind of under 12s, 13s thing. Like, don't get me wrong, a lot of people play it that are grown up, but it's one of them where it's got all the potential to be like a Lego movie because you've got an unlimited imagination just put into a film. Whereas stuff like that, you said about the emoji, this could work a lot better than the emoji film. I think it's got potential. I'm probably not going to see it because I'm not big on it, but we might get a good video game film. Pixar doesn't seem that way. The leaked Warcraft trailer does not look good. It just looks like a cutscene in the game. So it's one of them where it's a very hard genre to get right, and I think this and the Assassin's Creed film will be the big game changers if it does happen.
Yeah, and I'm not sure what quite happened to these films. We got the trailers for them a while back, but they were meant to be making a Ratchet and Clank movie, and they brought 2 trailers out for that, and that was meant to be coming out this year. But since then, haven't heard anything on it, so it's probably pushed back to next year. And they're also making a Sly Cooper one, so I think probably the best ones are going to be the animated ones, like the sort of kid games. And Minecraft does have a very unique graphical style to it. It is inherently very blocky and stuff like that, so I think you could get an interesting looking animated movie out of that. So we'll have to wait and see when we get more information on it. Our next bit of news, it's been said that LeBron James has signed a deal with Warner Brothers for a possible Space Jam 2. Now, I know that you've put Space Jam, I think it was number 5 in your top 5 animated films of all time list, so how do you feel about this?
It's an odd one with me because Space Jam is very much a part of, I think, the kids. Like, I don't like basketball a lot. Like, I know it, I get why people like it, etc., etc. But Michael Jordan's a cool guy and stuff, so it works. LeBron James, I don't like basketball. I know he's like the Messi or Ronaldo of basketball, but he comes across as a knob from what I've heard about it. This to me seems like a very, very money orientated thing, and I very much dislike the idea of this because I just couldn't picture a knob like him around with like Bugs Bunny and stuff. Because like Michael Jordan, it works though because it was Michael Jordan. Do you know what I mean? Like some of the famous ex-basketballers, especially the '90s ones, they're all cool guys. Whereas nowadays they're all kind of all about money in themselves. So I'd rather they just didn't make the film. To be honest, I hope they don't. I hope he's got some stupid biopic that loads of idiots are going to go and watch. But I very much hope this isn't Space Jam.
Well, I'm sure that I'm sure that even back in the day when the original Space Jam movie came out, that was all about money as well, the deal they struck with Michael Jordan. But I just think that Space Jam is such a product of its time and our time as well. Like, you grew up with it, I grew up with it, and I know a lot of my friends have fond memories of Space Jam. It was one of their favourite films as a kid. I just don't know if, like, a sports movie crossed with Looney Tunes is going to have that effect now. I don't think the Looney Tunes have as much of an impact now, especially with, like, animations change, daytime kids shows have changed now, so I don't even know if Looney Tunes are still on. But the classic Looney Tunes that I remember don't seem to be around anymore. They seem to drop off the map. And just like sports movies like that, like you had a whole slew of them come out in the 90s, very similar movies like that. So to me, it just seems like a 90s thing, and I don't see it coming back. Will it be good? Probably not, but I mean, if it's the classic Looney Tunes, I'll give it a watch. And I don't even think we know that it is Space Jam 2 at the minute. I think he's just signed a deal with Warner Brothers for something. But I mean, in this age where they keep bringing, like, doing sequels to films like 20 years after the fact or whatever, or rebooting stuff, it's entirely possible. But we'll have to wait and see.
Yeah, it's a risk, but then again, there's so little known. It could just be just a random deal, but hopefully it's not. Moving on from that, the incredibly gifted and wonderful actor who's up for so many awards and everyone loves him, who's got a smile worth billions, Tyrese Gibson, has come out and said he's been in talks to be in Green Lantern film, to play a Green Lantern, obviously. Yeah.
Yeah, well, we saw his sterling performances in the classic trilogy of films from Michael Bay, which was Transformers, Transformers Revenge of the Fallen, and indeed Dark of the Moon. So we know what this actor is capable of. Now, I'm sure he's been in other projects that I haven't seen where he's better, but I don't know, like, I don't want to pin it to this role, but if he's been talks, I'm assuming he's going to play the Jon Stewart Green Lantern character. Now that's strange because I thought they were going to try for Hal Jordan again, especially because it's going to be a Green Lantern core movie. Unless they're going to change it and they're just going to have all of the Green Lanterns in play ready, because it seems like DC very much want to, like, just get the universe set up from the off and not spend time setting stuff up or bringing him in at a later date. I mean, I guess he's an action actor, really, I think, so it might make sense for it, but from all the actors that have got for their previous stuff, it looks like they've gone after talent. Maybe not Gal Gadot, but we'll have to see what she's like in the film. So it's a bit of a weird one, but again, I don't want to rule him out just yet, because we'll have to wait for a trailer and see how he plays the character, but I mean, we've just got the 3 Transformers films to go on, really, at the minute, and that's not saying much for him at the minute, so yeah.
I will say he is in Fast and Furious.
Okay, see, I haven't seen those movies, so I'm not sure what he's like in that.
He suits them from what he is.
Yeah.
He's mates with them in real life, if you know what I mean. He's there's a scene in the new one which he's very, very funny, and I give him that. But Green Lantern wise, he's gonna be there cracking jokes, all of that. DC's got no jokes policy. I don't. If he goes serious, I see him doing some, like, horrible thing where it just doesn't work, him being serious. And also, I read that you're right about the Hal Jordan stuff. I'm sure I read Chris Pine's in talks, all of that. So I really hope this is just his ego and him getting excited about himself.
Yeah.
I don't think this is going to happen. He suits John Stewart, but I just don't. I can see DC using him just not this early. I think they'd go for Hal Jordan first. And
Yeah.
Chris Pine's a very good choice, whereas I'd rather see Tyrese stick to stuff like Fast and Furious, where he suits it.
Well, it doesn't. I haven't seen the Fast and Furious films, but to me, it doesn't seem like a far cry from what he's comfortable with Transformers. And I think that Green Lantern, especially with, like, the legacy of the character and the history of it, especially if they're going to try and do it right this time, it's a lot riding on his performance, especially if he's a main character. But we'll have to wait and see, I guess.
Exactly. Fast and Furious is basically Transformers, but with humans as gigantic robots that can survive jumps over bridges. But yeah, he suits that. It just doesn't suit him at all. I don't want him to do it.
Yeah.
I think he can stick to action stuff. I'd rather see him in some funny films, stuff like that, than him being hard up serious trying to play with Ben Affleck's Batman, if you know what I mean.
Yeah. But anyway, that's really our news for this week, and now we'll move into the trailers that came out for this week. We had some good ones, and we're going to kick off with probably the major trailer that came out this week. We got it wasn't our first look because we had a teaser trailer for it, but this is our first proper official trailer to the latest 007 Bond, Spectre.
James Bond is the essence of British cinema. This is the beginning. I could do whole things, but I'll save it for the November review. When this trailer came on, straight away, you are quipped into blatantly the James Bond pre-credit scene, which is him and I think it's like Dia de Muerto, whatever it is, in Mexico, and he kind of kicks up shit. And it's like, great, we've got Ralph Fiennes as M doing some Voldemort speech to him, which looks awesome. You see him with a grenade launcher in public, that's awesome. That's literally like a 1960s, 70s James Bond attire, not being a spy, but not doing it quietly. Then, cue the logos, etc. Then we get the Aston Martin, the most iconic car in English heritage, the best Bond car, specifically made for Spectre. They're talking with Q, it looks awesome. Here comes the Bond stuff. Then it cuts to the chase with the Jag, and you have literally Jag versus Aston Martin, another Bond thing used time and time again that actually worked in Die Another Day. And then I can go over the whole thing, but it looks like it's going to be a perfect James Bond film from this one trailer. Goes over the top as they do, not as bad as some of the ones like Moonraker do, but certainly over the top with the flying airplanes. It looks like it's going to be great fun. It looks like it's going to be a great James Bond film, and Christoph Waltz.
Well, you definitely picked up a lot more stuff than I did in this trailer. As I say, you're a hardcore Bond fan, like you've probably seen them all. I'm a very, very incredible casual fan, to the point where I'm sort of on the cusp of whether I like Bond or not. I completely get like the whole British cinema thing and British heritage thing, like absolutely, I completely agree with that. In terms of Bond's films that I've seen beginning to end, I've only seen the recent three, the Daniel Craig ones. Not been a huge fan. I liked Casino Royale. I hated Quantum of Solace, and I thought Skyfall was very boring and not much happened, contrary to popular opinion though. But after seeing this trailer, now my opinions haven't changed on Daniel Craig at all. I think he's still a very bland Bond. It looks like he's sleepwalking through it, and that still looks the same as in this trailer. Just his charisma just doesn't shine through, and the lines he throws out don't hit. But the film itself, how it's shot, the action, the tone of it, I'm really digging the tone. It's a very sort of, it feels almost like the last Bond movie for like, especially for Craig, and maybe it will be, and they've kept it under wraps. We don't know. But as you said, Christoph Waltz looks phenomenal. Now he doesn't look like much different from what he's been in like films like Inglourious Bastards and Django like that. But to me, what Skyfall lacked was the classic Bond villain. I thought it was Javier Bardem, wasn't it, who played the villain in Skyfall. Mm-hmm. From the trailers, I thought he looked good, but when you see him in the film, he just didn't have that intimidating aspect to him. I thought he was a very forgettable villain, but this looks like classic Bond villain. Like, you can imagine Christoph Waltz is going to be having these amazing monologues, and you see that in the trailer. We're back to the sort of icy, snowy mountain car chases again, which, it looks very similar to what Bond's done before, but it still looks great. And one thing I noticed as well, that when Casino Royale came out, it seemed very much like a Nolanized Bond. It did away with all the gadgets and stuff like that, and all the souped up cars, and it was very much like a realistic take on Bond. But Skyfall planted the seeds to the sort of gadget aspect coming back, and this looks like it's going to take it up a notch even more. And I like that they're going to kind of skirt the edge of the fanciful gadget stuff from the original Bonds, but still give it that new modern edge to it. So I'm looking forward to it. I'm not going to get my hopes up massively, because I know I'm a very casual Bond fan, but judging from this, our first proper decent look at it, I'm definitely looking forward to it. And also Dave Bautista's in the movie, so yes, we've got Drax the Destroyer in the movie. Sold.
It seems like everything, if there's a checklist for a Bond film, it seems like it's gone all of it. Batista is I think is Mr. Hinks, who they said before he was cast, we want a henchman who can come in 2 and 3 films, like the classic Jaws, stuff like that. So I was kind of digging that. They're really trying to go back to the basics and make it a success. And then I won't really delve into Skyfall, but I thought the villain was very good compared to a lot of Bond villains that I know you haven't seen them, but believe me, there are some woeful ones. But I think Christoph Waltz steals it, because he's already got one of the best one-liners a villain could want, which is like, I am the author of all of your pain. And
I love that line.
When he said that, I was like, this is going to be so fucking good. And and literally, I'm so excited for it. I could go on and on and on.
Yeah, and I'll just say to close off on this trailer that Sam Mendes has said that this is his last Bond film, which many thought was common knowledge anyway. I don't know if Daniel Craig signed up to more, if this is the last in his contract, but I think this might be the sort of send off to definitely this trilogy, and then I hope they do something at the end similar to the ending of Skyfall, where they set up something for the next one, and then I think we'll get an announcement that we're going to be getting a new Bond after this one.
Hopefully, I know that these Sony's lose the rights at the end of this. They're definitely not going to get them back with all the hacking stuff and all that.
Oh yeah.
My feeling is that it'll go to Warner Bros. Or Disney, because Disney and everything. If it goes to Warner Bros., I reckon they'll get Nolan in, and then boom, we'll have the greatest Bond trilogy of all time.
Yeah, he'll definitely do another trilogy following his Batman ones, and I think Warner Brothers would be a good platform for it. And if you look at Nolan's films, I think aesthetically and stylistically, he'd definitely work for Bond, and he would be a good successor to what Sam Mendes has done with the series. But yeah, as you said, we've talked for ages on this one trailer. We knew we would. We'll move on to the next one. We got our official trailer again. I don't know if it's another teaser actually, because we didn't get much dialogue in it. But for Pixar's next film after Inside Out, The Good Dinosaur, which I believe comes out later this year around November time. I absolutely love this trailer. I was really intrigued by the first teaser that came out, which sort of set the tone and the stage for it, but we didn't see all that much of it. This we get sort of it's almost like a musical montage. Like we get a few sounds from the dinosaur, a few sounds from the little kid in it, but we don't get any dialogue yet, probably because it hasn't been recorded, or maybe they're still in the early stages of it. Animation-wise, I think it's going to be one of Pixar's strongest, especially for the environments. Like they look so realistic, and you get these sort of breathtaking shots of like forests and rivers and mountains and stuff like that. All I can gather from the story at the minute is that it looks like it's going to be about a boy and his dinosaur just going on a fun adventure. And if this was Disney from the 90s, they'd probably end it where they kill off the dinosaur. But this is Pixar. We know they're not going to do that. It just looks fun. It looks really charming. It looks really sweet. And it looks like Pixar may have another hit on their hands. Obviously, after Inside Out, I know we have. Well, we'll get into our review for that in a bit, but we both really enjoyed it.
Yeah, I think Good Dinosaur is a really cool sort of concept. The trailer came out, the teaser was awesome. They kind of repeat that and go into it a bit more, and then it's kind of cool about the dynamic that it almost seems like they're scared of the dinosaurs. They clearly don't get along, so it doesn't reveal a lot, which is one of its strengths. Because I want to know more without knowing too much. That's kind of what I will talk about later. But in the marketing for Inside Out, I think there are only 2 trailers, and one of them was basically a Pixar trailer with say 30 seconds of Inside Out at the end of it.
Yeah.
It's just one of them they keep under wraps, and when it comes out, it'll be a lot fresher.
Yeah, totally. And then our final trailer for this week, we got our, again, first proper trailer, I would say, of Hunger Games Mockingjay Part 2, following the absolutely atrocious one we got at Comic-Con with the synchronized dancing stormtroopers, whatever the hell that trailer was. This gives a much better sense of what the film's going to be about. Again, I haven't seen the previous Hunger Game movies. I know roughly, sort of loosely, what the overarching plot is. Judging from the trailer, the colour palette is very grey, it's very muted, it's very desaturated. There are a lot of explosions, so this is going to be your classic sort of where they split the novel into 2 parts. Harry Potter did it, Twilight did it, Hobbit did it with 3 parts. This is going to be your big action, beginning to end, wall-to-wall action set piece, your big finale to it. Because I haven't followed the series before and I haven't become attached to the characters and stuff, this trailer didn't really do anything for me. But I'm sure when we bring our review out for that later in the year, I'll go back and watch them all, so maybe I'll get a better sense of it. You've read the books and you followed the series before this, so what did you think of it?
It's one of them where I disliked Mockingjay, as I said many times, the book. Disliked part 1 because it was irrelevant and it did too much weird stuff. The trailer came out for this and I really enjoyed it. I thought it was actually a very good trailer, because what the first 2 films got right, when there's action, it's very good. It's not over the top. The way it goes in the book, it's just literally like, the trailer kind of does it. The whole city is a booby trap.
Yeah.
And the book does it in a very good way. And the film kind of looks like they're doing a bit more. Obviously, they have to. It's 2 hours long. They can't just fill it with the bits we've done in the book. So it's going to be interesting to see how it's done. It looks a lot better. Because I originally wasn't going to watch Mockingjay Part 1 until Part 2 came out. Then I ended up seeing it for some reason. And then I was just like, I want to get to Part 2 because that's the fun stuff. And this trailer kind of shows it. for the book readers, it gives us a very, very good look at some of the key scenes from the actual finale. One of them's a gigantic spoiler, so I won't say it.
Okay.
And I was buzzing to see that, although it just hints it ever so slightly. The book readers will get it, normal people won't. And it's going to be interesting to see how it finishes, because I don't want it to be like Hobbit 3 where it's just action fatigue. If they can get the balance right, then it's got a lot of potential and it could go down as a good part 2. The downside of a good part 2 means that it's a part 2 film. You should just have one final film.
They just make like 1 3-hour movie, just end it, condense it into one movie. I'm sure they could have done it. But it's why make one movie that's going to make $1 billion when you could make two movies that's going to make $1 billion each? It's money. It makes the world go round, unfortunately. But for what it is, it looks okay. But as I said, I don't have much attachment to the series. I'll have to watch the previous ones to get on board with this movie. And yeah, that's our week in movie news. We may have gone on for quite a bit longer this week, but again, we had a lot of news and we definitely had to talk on that Spectre trailer that came out. But now we'll be getting into our main review for our show this week. Obviously, we're going to be talking about Pixar's Inside Out. We're going to have a spoiler-free section at the start, and we'll move into spoilers later, but we'll let you know when we're going to go into the spoiler section. Kicking off, though, before we get into Inside Out, we're going to talk about the animated short. Like all the other Pixar films that came before this, they always open with a little 5 to 6 minute short. This one was called Lava. I guess if you don't want to know the short, then skip ahead and I'll put the time in the description below, but we're only going to talk about it briefly. You saw this film before me and you prepped me that there was a short and that you didn't much care for it. I'll give my opinions quickly. I thought for what it was kind of charming. I thought the animation was absolutely beautiful on it. Again, all the landscape ones, it looks like Pixar, even from their latest ones, have just made a huge leap in their graphics for all that stuff. But as it is, what it is, the plot of it, it's about a volcano, a lonely volcano that's looking for love. He looks out and he sees like all the animals in love and all that stuff, all the birds, and he wants love for himself. And there's a female volcano underneath the ocean. She hasn't erupted and like come out of the ocean yet, so he can't see her. And it's basically just a love song that he sings, and that's the short. I thought it was charming enough, but I did think the song itself, the melody that they got for it, it was very repetitive, and I was kind of sitting there just going like, come on, let's get to Inside Out. I want to see this movie. But it's what Pixar do. They always bring a short out. What did you think of it?
Yeah, it's one of them where when it started, I completely forgot that Pixar tends to do shorts, because I heard the one for the Cinderella film this year. Apparently, there was an amazing one tied to it. And with this, I don't know if I heard anyone say it, but I knew that it wasn't going to be like as great as the film. The thing is, the downside of an amazing film is that you want to watch it straight away.
Yeah.
You grab adverts to the cinema and here we go. And sure, it wasn't bad. It just didn't feel like a short. It just kind of felt that Pixar had done a music video for someone. So I liked bits and bobs. It looked great, and it was at the time it was catchy. I've forgotten half the lyrics now.
I know it ends on that lyric. They do like a pun on the word love and turn it into lava, don't they? Like lava.
Exactly. It's just one of there are a few cool bits. I just was very bored and just wanted the film to start, but I don't know. I just thought it didn't really suit. I'd have rather have seen. I think I remember when I was younger the shorts of the guy from Toy Story 2 that fixes a Woody. I'm 100% positive there's one of him playing chess with himself or something like that.
I believe that was tied to Bug's Life, I think, that one. Yeah, I think
was
so.
it? But it's just one of them where you get your memorable ones, and I just don't really think, as a short, I'd like to see something quick and engaging rather than a music video. But, I'd rather have that before the film than go into an amazing film than a great short and a terrible film.
I think my favourite Pixar short's got to be the one. Have you seen it? I think it was Finding Nemo, the one with the snowman and the snow globe, and he's trying to break out to get with the mermaid figure in the fishbowl.
I can't remember it, to be fair.
Oh, that's brilliant. If you can find it, look for it. That's hilarious. But like how we were frustrated and we wanted the short to be over and get into the film, that's exactly what we're going to do. Let's jump into our Inside Out review. Spoiler-free section, obviously, at the start. I guess we go with sort of initial impressions and what we thought of it. I remember when Pixar sort of gave their log lines for their films, or their taglines, whatever you want to call it, for their upcoming projects, and they had one for Inside Out, which we now know to be Inside Out, and one for Good Dinosaur. Originally, the tagline for this was something like film to take place inside the human mind, and that was it. And I was like, oh, okay, I'm not sure. Is it going to be like all brain synapses and stuff like that? I was thinking way too much into it. And then obviously as it came out, we got our first look at it. But as you said earlier, like with the trailers, they didn't show a whole lot. We didn't get a sense of the plot of it. We got a sense of more or less the idea, and then that great trailer that came out, which I didn't know if would be in the movie or not. I guess this isn't a spoiler, but that scene is in the film. And I was instantly just blown away by it. I thought this looks like a really creative idea, really original concept, and the characters look fun. But I did have that doubt when I saw that first trailer. I thought, I don't know how you're going to make a full film out of this idea if they keep this up all the time. Are you going to have just the rival emotions in the daughter's head and the parent's head, and that's going to be the whole movie? Luckily, they do have a plot, and it goes much more in depth. Um, and then more or less sort of like my initial thoughts for it, if we're going to go with sort of like Pixar's string of films before this, they've definitely had a few misses over the years, notably Cars 2, which we talked about in our Pixar rundown. Monsters University was bad, and I know Brave was just sort of okay. It wasn't the big standout one. To me, if I'm going to give my initial impressions now, this is definitely their biggest hit following Toy Story 3 in my opinion. I absolutely loved this film. Really plays on the emotional stuff as well, which I think was lacking in the last couple of Pixar films. And to me, sort of thematically, and if I were going to compare this to any of the previous Pixar films that have come out, I'd say it's definitely similar in sort of the plot and the world to Monsters Inc., in that it's sort of this world behind what we expect for it. Like Monsters Inc. was this whole world of monsters and the doorways leading to the closets, stuff like that. This is all the world that goes on inside the head with emotions and stuff like that. It's like a factory. They're running like it's like a day job for them. And I think emotionally there are a lot of similarities to Toy Story 3 with the whole sort of acceptance and like coming into like teenage years, stuff like that, letting go of childhood, things like that. So I think thematically it's very similar to that, but if I'm going to give my initial impressions before we get more in depth to it, I absolutely adored this film.
Yeah, I think it's the same here. When the trailers came out, I remember the first trailer was one of the best teasers I've ever seen because it goes through the five emotions, but every emotion it says it has a few clips thrown together of previous Pixar films, which was one of the strongest like possible things. It will have everyone's attention, even the kids, because I remember all. Then it kind of cuts to it, and it's like, aha, meet characters. Then you got that trailer, which you spoke about again, with the scene from the film, which was awesome, because I remember that was such a well done
Yeah.
trailer, and that was the bit that sold me with 200% that I'd see in the cinema. And obviously the reviews flying and stuff like that. So building up to it, it was very good based off of the. I didn't know about the sort of the tagline thing before the trailers and stuff, so it kind of just hit me when all this came out what the film's going to be about. So I was really, really buzzing for it, and I thought it was awesome. I mean, we'll go into it,
Yeah.
but it shocked me. I mean, Disney's had a very good year with animated films this year with Big Hero and 6 and this, and it's great that Pixar have got back on form. I mean, since Toy Story 3, it's not really been anything. I'm really hoping that with this and Good Dinosaur that something great happens, because I don't have all the best of hope for Dory.
Yeah, definitely. I know they're going to be moving into more sequels and stuff, but it's always nice when Pixar do bring out an original concept and it does hit as much as this. And as you were saying, like about the trailer and stuff, it's so refreshing to see a trailer nowadays that just pitches you the concept and leaves it at that. Like besides that, like knowing what the rough idea of how the film was going to play out, we didn't know the plot. We didn't see any of that, so the film was all completely brand new when it throws you into this world. Which is very like that's not usual now for a film. Usually, you go and see a film now. You've seen about 3 or 4 trailers to it. You basically know exactly how the film's going to play out, and you just play it all out in your mind, and it happens exactly as you know it. So, although I don't want to spoil loads, we'll go into the brief plot of it so you get the idea of it. Again, if you don't want to know, just skip ahead like a minute or two. The film's basically about a little girl called Riley who lives in Minnesota, and then when she's 11, the family moves to San Francisco. The dad gets a new job, and that's really the main plot of it. And it's sort of Riley coping with this from the creative, colourful characters that are her emotions in her head. You've got joy, you've got sadness, fear, anger, disgust, and these characters are in everyone's minds. They control everything, obviously all the individual emotions. And you sort of have two parallel storylines running along each other. You've got all the human stuff with Riley as she's coping with this, and then the quest, as you will, of these emotions trying to get her to feel happy when she's going through this big change in her life and she's trying to cope with it. So if I'm going to comment on that right then and there, like I didn't know that was what the plot was going to be about, and it allowed for like this emotional aspect to Pixar to shine through again. With like Toy Story and stuff, the whole thing it does with like childhood and like growing in, moving into adulthood, all that stuff, it's brilliant. And with all that stuff and the thematic aspects to it like that, this is what a good family film is. Like the kids are gonna laugh at all the funny, colourful characters and the funny voices, stuff like that. But when we go and see it, or if an adult goes to see it, you're gonna pick up on all that emotional stuff. And for me, this film really hit hard. And I'm gonna lose my man points a bit here now, but there were moments in this film where I was tearing up a little bit. And if a film can do that, then it's done exactly what it needs to.
Yeah, I'll definitely say it straight away. I did not expect to be as hit badly as I did in that, especially during one scene, which I'll go into in the spoilers. But it was so refreshing. And then it's hard to talk about the scene because I don't know if it's spoiler. When they introduced the characters, they introduced the world of the
Yes.
mind, and I did not think it was humanly possible to have thought about it as much as that, and it's done so well. And the other thing about Martin, nothing is shown in the trailers. When they I'll just kind of say, say that that there's lands inside the mind that wasn't ever shown,
Mm.
and when they kind of bring them up, it's like that is awesome. That is so well thought of, and it's so important to the actual mind and the person themselves to come up with absolutely everything they did is a credit in itself, and the way it pays off as the film carries on, the sort of the changes, the makeshift, the falls, everything is done in such a way that only Pixar could have done it.
Yeah, and right from there, like you're thrown straight into this world, and I believe there's a little bit of a voiceover at the start from the character of Joy, and you see how the world works, and it's so creative how they do it. It looks great, and the whole concept behind it. The director of this, just bring up his name now, Pete Docter. I believe this is his third feature. Before this, he did Monsters Inc. and Up, and I mean, I didn't think Up was that great, but emotion-wise, it definitely was. And as I said earlier, I think stylistically this runs very similar to Monsters Inc. in like this sort of like factory working environment, but it's just like Monsters Inc. It's so creative, and as you said about the islands, like I would have never guessed that would have been in the film, but it all totally works, and it's not like it gets confusing with all this stuff. They lay it out completely from the beginning, and right from there, you're on board with it. You're on board with all these characters, and you're in for the journey. So, it's difficult to talk about stuff because of spoilers, so we'll just move into characters now and just sort of gloss over it. But your main character's Joy. I really like this character, and it really their personalities are exactly as the name suggests, their emotions. She's the one who's really on Riley's side. She was there from when she was a kid. Obviously, when you're a kid or a toddler, that's the only thing you really have is joy. Everything's new to you. So she's constantly trying to keep Riley happy, even when she's going through all this turmoil. You've got Sadness, who is obviously the flip side to that, and the Sadness is one of the best characters in it. Some of her lines are absolutely hilarious. She's always down. She's always depressed. Fear doesn't get a whole lot to do, but he just gets some funny lines into it. And then Anger is brilliant. He has this amazing thing when he gets super angry, like a flame shoots out of his head and he just goes insane. And you see that in the trailer. And then probably out of the core cast though, Disgust gets the least amount of stuff to do. I would have liked to have seen a bit more to her. She just sort of gets some like snarky quips in. But your main two ones really are Joy and Sadness. That's what the whole film's about. But unlike most Pixar films, actually, I didn't know any of the voice cast in this film, really. I suppose they're, like, more popular in America. They're probably on some, like, sitcoms or American shows like that. It's very rare I'll go and see a Pixar film where I know none of the cast involved. But I thought all of them were brilliant. The voices totally suited the characters. And, yeah, I thought the characters absolutely phenomenal in this film.
Yeah, I think speaking of voice actors, this is what shocked me as well. I didn't know any names. I knew Bill Hader was a part of it, and he plays Fear, but I don't think you know him, but he's arguably one of the biggest names they had. You know, I didn't notice him at all. However, the one that voices Joy is Amy Poehler, who was the lead character in Parks and Rec, which is without a doubt the best sitcom made since Friends, is unbelievably good. She kind of plays her, not herself, but her character. But it's so cool because she's genuinely always so happy and stuff. It kind of felt like I seen Parks and Rec again, which was amazing. But her character's nice, and the voice of Sadness is Phyllis, who's like one of the back characters in The Office. So I thought it was kind of really cool to see like someone from the US Office that wasn't a key player in it kind of do something and be a main part of. But speaking of voice, I just thought they suited, like each character kind of suited their tone. I mean, it could sound stupid, but if you had Amy Poehler voicing Sadness, it wouldn't work. If you had Sadness voicing Disgust, it wouldn't work. Each voice actor's correctly credited to what their emotion is. And I thought that plays a hand because it's very easy to get stuff like this wrong. Voice actor wise, I thought Amy Poehler's a big name to get for something like this too. But it worked, and it just made it more believable when they were talking and doing their stuff.
Yeah, and I mean, this film had three screenplay writers, but just the chemistry between all the characters, like I could see this as sort of like a live action skit on like a comedy show in the US or something with these characters. Like the dialogue they had was very believable, and although you got these colourful characters obviously in this fictional world, they still seem like real people, and that's a good thing that Pixar can do. They can make you believe that toys are real people. They can make you believe that monsters are real people, and that all shines through from the voice cast. So I mean, I haven't seen Parks and Rec or The Office or stuff like that, so this was still all new to me. But I thought the voices suited the characters. Like very often with some of recent Disney films, you'll watch the characters and you'll go, "Oh, that celebrity's playing that character," and all in your head, all you can see is the celebrity. But to me, maybe it's because I didn't know the cast, but all these actors felt like the characters they were playing, and so I was completely on board with all the characters. And I guess we can touch on the character of Riley as well. I mean, she's a really likable character, and because you're constantly with her emotions and know what she's going through, there's some moments with Riley, and I won't spoil it, but there's one bit where she goes to school, and it's absolutely heart wrenching. And again, down to the voice, the script, and everything, because it's a personal story of that one character. You're on board with that character from the beginning, and yeah, all the emotional stuff comes from that one character, and it's just beautiful to watch.
Yeah, and I think one of the strongest points, which we don't normally speak about, is the editing in this
Oh
film
yeah.
because they make the transition to the mind to the class in so many scenes. It's done very well, and you could easily have her doing a speech on her own. If you don't put the emotion, you can't really like feel it as much. When you're sitting there panicking and says they don't know what to do, then it kind of hits it. Then it cuts to Riley herself. It works really well, I thought, because that's another important thing. If you get the editing wrong in this film, you're stuffed. Because then it will just like you'd either dislike a character more, or it just you wouldn't receive it as well as you do. So it's a credit they got that right. But with Riley, it's interesting because I've said time and time again, you get a lot of these young characters which are very easy to dislike, and I think with Riley, because you kind of see her from the kid, you see her grow up, whether it's like a 2-3 minute segment or not. You kind of feel this. You get to know her with the islands of the hockey stuff like that. You know her personality straight from the off. And then it's when they delve into it, dissect it as the film carries on. It pulls it a bit, and you really really want to like, come on, get better. Don't do this. Don't do this. It's stuff like that, and I think it works so well on the screen. And I think for adults that understand a lot of the stuff that she goes through, it would have affected at least like everyone one aspect of that. Whereas with the kids, they're going to know some bits that'll be relevant to the school bit. So it's one of them. It targets all the audiences perfectly.
Yeah, and just Pixar do it so well as well. You look at their previous movies, like the character of Andy or Boo, or the kid from Up, stuff like that. It seems like they get it. And in the credits for this film, towards the end, I don't know if you stayed for the whole credits, but there's a caption that the Pixar had, and it was like, "This film is dedicated to our kids. Never grow up." Or never get, or something like that, and that's really the whole message of the film, and it's so good. But you mentioned about the editing, so we'll get into the more like technical side of it now. If we move to the animation itself, absolutely love the animation in this film, and it's very interesting what they do, because for a lot of previous Pixar films that have come out, Brave more noticeably, they've gone with the whole realistic kind of stuff, like with the humans and stuff. So you get that side with it, with the human side to it, and also really quickly, the one how they made Riley's mum look. She really reminded me of Bonnie's mum from Toy Story 3. Just how she looked. She looked very similar to that. But so you get the realistic side to it, and then you get the colourful characters inside the mind who look, I don't know how to describe them. They almost look like they're plushy, like they're sort of soft toys, like they have that sort of material quality to their skin and stuff. But the world itself just it's super colourful, super imaginative and stuff like that. So, and again, this is sort of a spoiler, but there's a scene in it where a particular scene where they do different animation styles to it. I'll just leave it at that. And that shows the quality of Pixar's animation, that they can go through like this whole style in the same film, but just make it seamless.
Yeah, and I think if we go into the world of the colourful stuff, if we look at it a bit more, it's really hard to say what's spoiler, what's not. I want to talk about the kind of memories. Like they have these
Yeah.
balls where they're actually the memories of a. They kind of go into long term memories, kind of a flute out of HQ stuff like that. They stack them on the shelves, and what they kind of cut to is I don't know if it's a spoiler. Do you know what I'm about to say? With the you kind of have like these night shift workers who actually flush out memories you don't need. And the way I'd see it, I was looking, I was like, oh shit! I was like, there are genuinely things I forget about.
Mm.
And that's because you naturally lose part of your memory, and that's what these things do. So they almost have workers and everything to do anything that happens inside the human brain. Then just to never mind a bit, whenever you hear the song in your head that just comes out of nowhere, in this film it's just kind of these night shift people pranking everyone at headquarters, and it makes for some of the funniest moments of the film.
It's genius. The whole film's genius, and so like the animation, like they have the colourful characters, they have the human side, but as well, more so in this film, it's the landscapes and what they do with the world. It's so creative, and like it's just plays to Pixar's credit that they can come up with stuff like that. And to go alongside the animation, I missed who was the composer, but I probably should have guessed. The score to this movie by Michael Giacchino, who's just, man, this guy is just. I've forgotten how many film scores he's composed this year. He's just on the up and up, and his scores are absolutely phenomenal. And right from the off, the main theme to this film, it's like a solo piano piece, and it's so dreamlike, and it's just gorgeous. It completely suits the film, and it's he seems like he's becoming Pixar's go-to composer. I think before this he did the score to Up, he did the score to Ratatouille and Wall-E, and his music's phenomenal. He's so diverse in his styles, and this film has a lot of emotion to it. He really hits the emotion hard, as I said in all of his previous other scores. It can be fun when it wants to be, it can be intense when it needs to be exciting and dramatic. But the main theme to this film is one of my favourite pieces of music, probably this year. I absolutely adored this score.
Yeah, I think when it came on, I was aware that he did this. He's tweeted about it a few times, but for a film that relies on the emotions, that's arguably one of the hardest things you've got to get right for it to all work, which is the soundtrack. And he just does it. He does every film right. He's took on classic films, i.e. Jurassic Park, Planet of the Apes. He's done them perfectly. He's done new films, these Pixar ones, but with this, it's when you'll have these moments and the soundtrack will kind of blare up, not in a Hans Zimmer way, but you'll feel it coming and it gets louder, it grows, and it does make all the difference to the outcome. And as you said, like, he's on fire this year. He's just doing score left, right, and centre. And look at Tomorrowland. It was an okay film, and he was good in it. Jurassic Park, I love that film. I love the soundtrack. He's someone that he's always going to improve the film, and that's the sign of a fantastic composer. And he's really probably broken into my top 5 favourites.
Oh well. Yeah, same here. And we talked about his future. He might be scoring the future Star Wars films and stuff like that. He's really good at homaging other scores, but like this is an original piece. His original stuff's just as good as stuff he reuses and stuff like that. So it's going to be kind of difficult to move into anything else about this film without going into spoilers. So before we do, we'll just give our overall impressions on it if you haven't got them already, and if we'd recommend the film. For me, this is probably in my top 4 Pixar films of all time. It was an absolute joy to watch this film. Beautifully made film, really imaginative, completely original. Loved the characters, loved the emotion behind it and the story it was telling. And just from talking about this now, I want to see this film again on the big screen. Definitely see it on the big screen. Don't wait for DVD. Go and see it on the big screen. You'll really take in the scale of it and the beauty of the animation to it. Absolutely would 100% recommend it, whether, of any age. You have to see this film because I think the message behind it will speak to whoever sees this film. Would highly recommend. One of Pixar's best.
Just don't watch the film if you're on your own and you're over the age of 18 and you're screening full of children. This film is one of my favourites from this year. It's one of my favourite Pixar films behind Toy Story, Bugs Life and Nemo. It's a fantastic film. It's going to play with all your core heart, everything. You're going to love it, and I do want to see it again. Now I've been speaking about it so
Yeah,
much.
and what's interesting as well, like my closing thoughts from my overall impressions, Toy Story series was the film from my childhood that made me think toys were real when I left the room. This movie, after I've seen it now, I'm going to be constantly thinking that I've got these characters in my own head controlling all my emotions. So this will probably be the Pixar film that will guide me through adulthood. But now we'll get into our spoiler section. I think to kick off, we'll talk about one of the characters we couldn't talk about in the first bit, which is Riley's imaginary friend when she was a kid called Bing Bong. The reason we've saved him for the spoiler section is that obviously he didn't feature in any of the trailers that came out, and his character does kind of take you by surprise in the film. I think he describes himself that he's part cat, part elephant. He cries candy, and he's made of cotton candy. Candy floss. Really colourful, imaginative-looking character. I really liked his character, and for most of the film, he's sort of an emotional core base to it. There's that scene where they meet him and he kind of guides them through, and I talked about that scene earlier where they enter that room, which I forgot the word they use, but it messes with their atoms in their body, and they slowly turn more 2D, and you get a sweet bit of like 2D animation with it, which is really cool how they did that. And it's all about his character serves the aspect of Riley letting go of her childhood as she's moving into, well, I know she's only 11, but she's moving into adulthood, and she's going through like this traumatic experience of like the move, and it's completely messed with her emotions and stuff like that. And he probably gets one of the most heartbreaking moments of the film where he's with Joy and they've got trapped in the forgotten memories, and they find this cart that Riley had when she was young that she used to play in with her imaginary friend, and they're trying to get out of this pit, and they're almost getting out of it, but they just can't make it. And Bing Bong realizes that it's because two people are in the cart, and that Joy's the one that has to carry on. So he jumps out of the cart as it's in midair, sacrifices himself, and he slowly disappears. And that was one of the many bits of this film where the tears started coming on their way a little bit.
It was not unexpected that he'd sacrifice himself when he's in the pit, but I think when it got to it, I just wasn't anticipating like how it would be when he's kind of waving. He just evaporates, and it's one of them where when you have him with Joy, one that like she's loving it, she's so excited, she's flying off and stuff, and it's just that he knows that one more time, I've got a really good feeling about this. You know exactly what's going to happen. And then when it does, it's like quite horrible. Like I was genuinely like really upset because when you introduced him, you're like, oh, but then you get to know him and he's really cool. Everything is for Riley that he does. So it's got that dynamic where inside the mind he really does care, and all he wants is, Riley to be happy, stuff like that. And it's just the sacrifices when Joy looks back and he's not there. And I'm getting goosebumps now. It was a very emotional moment. I just didn't anticipate this. I think. Honestly, I think it's almost the saddest opening scene. I don't know why, but it was. But he was just, whenever he was in a scene, he just had these moments where he was kind of the comedy relief to a degree, but he was important to the plot and he didn't piss about with it. He was used very well, and I like the fact that there's an imaginary friend. I mean, a lot of people in their childhood had one, and the fact that it naturally would be included. And at her age, he kind of would be walking around. He's trying to get the memories back of him, and it's very believable and it's very sad at the same time. His fate, but it was kind of a perfect moment.
Yeah, and I think by the sounds of that, we had a similar feeling towards his character when he was first introduced. Like when he appeared, I was like, oh god, this is going to be like the Jar Jar Binks of this movie. Like you had a great film and you're going to ruin it with this really annoying character. But he wasn't, and he quickly became very likable. And looking back, I do think that if it had have just been Joy and Sadness's adventure, I think that still could have worked. We've seen Pixar films in the past just deal with two characters. You've had Woody and Buzz. You've had Mike and Sully in Monsters Inc. You've had loads of other films where you've just had two characters before, so I think they could have done it with this. Finding Nemo as well, obviously. But he does add that nice core element to the emotion, so I think his character was needed, and obviously it introduced a new character to what was already a very small cast of characters. Moving on, I guess we can get more into the Riley stuff. Towards the end of the film, she's sort of trying to cope with this move. what's really it is heartbreaking in the movie is when you see her personality crumbling. She has all islands dedicated to different aspects of her personality. So she's got, I think they call it like Wacky World or something, which is her playful, mad self. There's Hockey Island, which is her passion for sport and sport of hockey. And then you've got like Family Island. I think there's another one as well, but I can't really remember it. Um, and then as she's going through these experiences, these islands are just slowly, like the colours fading from them and just crumbling, and the characters are trying to get back to headquarters so they can get the joy back into her feelings, and they're traversing all across these different islands. And it's when the family one's breaking down at the end, when she realizes that she wants to move back to Minnesota. She's going to leave home, she's going to abandon her parents, she's going to steal money from her mum's purse, which was, by the way, going back to editing, there was a great moment with that where you think that the mum's caught her and it cuts back and she's just escaped. I loved that as well. But it's really heartbreaking. Then this all amalgamates to the very ending, where she has the emotional scene with the parents, where the mum wants her to be the happy girl she's always known, and to stay happy because she's saying, "You being happy is keeping us happy," meaning herself and husband, the dad. And then she just breaks down at the end and says, "Look, I can't be the happy girl you want me to be. This has been tough for me. This is tough for me. I can't do it." And she just sort of sobs into her parents' arms. And that was where, for me, that was where the tears like were on the way. That was the biggest emotional bit for me, and it's beautifully done.
Yeah, and the way the whole thing is when on that scene I remember when they cut to the parents as
Yeah.
well. When they speak, I felt like I was hearing the characters in their head speak rather than the parents, if you know what I
Mm.
mean? Because you know that scene when they cut to the emotions of the parents, and you can kind of feel that from everything, and the way it links, it is so relevant to so many lives. It made perfect sense, and it's just the way it's done. It's easy to get something like that wrong, but again, Pixar succeed in doing the hard stuff, and the way it's just built up is it's kind of it's when the keyboard's kind of glazed over,
Mm.
where no one can get the light bulb out. It's the whole build up to all of it, where they're all stuck and they've realised they made a bad choice, and then joy and sadness. And I think one of the nicest parts of the whole film is when there's this kind of mutual understanding that you need sadness to be a part of it. I mean, you need all your emotions, and that's the acceptance point of joy. Originally, she was trying to go to sadness the whole time, but it's what Riley needs.
Yeah, absolutely, and that's obviously the big thematic ending to it all, that you need all your emotions to be a whole person, really. She's always like been banishing and keeping sadness to the side throughout the movie, but that acceptance at the end, it was really nice. And yeah, it was just, the whole movie is just so tightly written, and the idea behind it, I loved it. Um, so I guess we can move into sort of like the minor details now. Like Pixar are infamous for like dropping little Easter eggs and little ties into their previous movies. I didn't catch a whole lot to this, but you brought up a list before recording, and apparently there's loads in there. I'm just going to go through the ones I noticed. Obviously, John Ratzenberger returns. He's sort of Pixar's good luck charm, as they refer to him. He always gets a cameo. He was the voice of Ham in Toy Story, and he plays a character or side character in every film. He was in this. That was to be expected. As to other things, when you see baby and toddler Riley at the start, they used a lot of the sound effects from Boo, so I noticed that. That was more a technical aspect. I don't know if that was intentional. And when they move into the new house and Riley's kind of looking around and realises what a dump it is, she says there's even like a dead mouse in the corner. And the mouse looks a lot like, is very similar in appearance to the rat from Ratatouille. They were only the really ones I noticed, but I know that you noticed a lot more than me.
Yeah, I think it's the scene when she's running around with Bing Bong, when Riley's a bit
Yeah.
younger. The Disney Pixar ball is on the floor, and I immediately noticed it because it's the yellow. You see the bit of the star in the corner, so I thought, oh, that's really cool. Because you kind of go into this as the first Pixar film that's going in looking for the Easter
Mm.
eggs, not intentionally, but kind of if one comes up, I'll kind of notice it. When they cut to the new house, when Riley looks up, it had the style of the house from up. That's what I
Mm.
noticed as well, and it was just kind of dark and it wasn't blue. Obviously, it wasn't in the neighbourhood of them, so it's kind of cool. Whether it's intentional or not, I don't know. And then, a quick Google search later, you find out they've got all the sort of classic ones. There's an A113 thing in there once or twice. There's just loads, and again, it's just the Pixar do it. And what I'm hoping in the next few months, we'll see how Inside Out fits into the Pixar theory.
No, that'll be interesting to see. That definitely like chain them all together. So other than that, really, I think we can just talk about some of our favourite scenes and then just sort of give the film a once over again. For me, the favourite scene, it's very difficult to pick one because it's so... I just see the film as a whole. Like, I didn't really pick up on notable scenes particularly, probably because I was just so caught up in it. But if I had to pick a favourite scene, it would most likely be just the opening. Like, the introduction into the world. Like, I was just wide-eyed, just staring at everything. I loved it, and like hearing all the original concept, the world, the islands of her personality, the spheres of the different emotions, cashing them all in at the end of the day, storing them into long-term. It's perfect how they do it. So that's definitely my favourite scene. If I was going to do a runner-up scene, it was another ingenious thing they do, in that the dreams that Riley have is like a TV show for the emotions, and there's a scene where joy and sadness are trying to wake up Riley, and we see the dream from I think it's Fear watching the screen, and it's hilarious the dream they do. It's like a film production studio. It's a really neat idea for it, and they sort of look at the thoughts that Riley's had all day. They have a script writer who's like formed a narrative for what the dream's going to be that night, and this is when joy and sadness crash the production of the film for the dream and try and get her to wake up with a nightmare. I thought that was so imaginative and perfect, so that would probably be a runner-up to that.
Yeah, it's hard one because when I saw this, it was kind of a constant. He said, "What's your favourite scene?" And it's the same as yours. It's the opening scene when you're being introduced to everything. Yes, it's maybe 10-15 minutes long, but it's so intriguing. It kind of keeps you going and going. It was such an awesome moment. But as an individual scene, it's a very easy choice. But it's got to be the dinner time from the trailer when it plays into the film. It's a bit extended and stuff. And I thought it was so cool. It was just the logic that, DEFCON 2, it's like a sort of Navy dropping the nuke, and it's actually just putting its foot down. And it was really cool, because it's the only time which goes into the parents, which is it's a minor issue, but I'd have liked to have seen a bit more of the mum and dad's emotions, because they kind of had this thing where they go, oh, he's doing that again. It was really cool stuff. Although it's shown in one scene, I'd like to have seen a little bit more.
Yeah, no, I agree with that, and I had that same thought. That's really the only moment you get to see their emotions. But I think that the fact that it's very much focused on Riley, it allows it to be a character piece. And you have that one funny scene where you see inside the parents' heads. I don't know if you needed that for the whole film or if that would have derailed it, because that was played more just for like a scene of laughs rather than anything of substance, really. But I agree with that. It would have been nice to have seen them maybe come back at the end again when you get your resolution. But if I'm going to do one final impressions of it, final say, I'll just reiterate what I've said before. Go and see it. Show your support to this film. It's doing pretty well at the box office, but obviously it's just come out here in the UK, so definitely go and see it. One of Pixar's best. A joy to watch. Really colourful, really imaginative, and good things from Pixar. They seem to be back on the radar now. Hopefully Good Dinosaur is just as good as this one, but it's going to have a lot to top because I love this movie beginning to end.
Yep, this film, make sure you see it as soon as you can. It's great. You're going to love it regardless of your age. Kids will love it if you've got any. Watch this film. It will change your opinion. You're going to kind of sit there and think, oh wow, this is genuinely something spectacular, and it's going to pull on all your heartstrings.
Absolutely. So that was our main review for this week of Inside Out. Now we're going to just power through our last two segments of our show. We're going to kick off with another edition of Film Fights. How Film Fights works is we take a character, characters, or whatever situation from our news section and pit it against something in our main review section. Obviously this was Inside Out, but we're going to keep this more focused to Pixar and the films that have come before it. So we're going to have the question: what would be more daunting, the fact that toys come alive, following from Toy Story, or that these emotions from Inside Out control your entire life? I'll kick off with this one briefly. I think both are going to be traumatic for anyone if they realised. I mean, we see the effects of what happens when someone finds out that toys are alive at the end of Toy Story 1, where Sid sees that Woody's alive. And he's just freaked out, and if we didn't have his cameo in Toy Story 3, we could probably assume that he's locked up in some kind of asylum somewhere, just like in a padded cell, just saying that toys are real. But the fact that these emotions do control your entire life, and we see the limits they go to, like they push the character of Riley into some very dangerous situations towards the end of the film if any of these emotions are lost or get out, and we're just left with was it anger, fear, and disgust. They can lead you into a very bad place. So I think I'm gonna give the edge to the emotions, because I think the fact that they can control a whole human's existence and future is quite, as you said, daunting. But I think that the toys are more traumatic rather than daunting.
Yeah, I think it's exactly similar. When I was thinking of the toys, you kind of think, wow, okay, if that happened, that's a bit fucked up. I've played with these for like my whole life, and they're alive, so that's gonna seriously like ruin you. Then with the emotion, just kind of thinking, it's like, you know, from now on, if I have a day when I'm literally just angry or pissed off or sad the whole day, you're gonna kind of think, goes, oh. Whereas now, add in this film, and suddenly it's more of a, okay, is he going in a shoot trying to find some of this stuff? If you know what
Yeah.
I mean, it's both of them are horrible if they're real, but it's just the fact that you're being controlled your whole life, and that is genuinely not your conscience. It's someone sticking something out. Great, that's your good idea for the day. It's crazy to think of, but again, it's the fact that Pixar have just warped your mind. This is literally just like, this is the pinnacle of it. Like you genuinely have no control over your life. Some little atoms basically do.
Yeah, absolutely, and I think that's what's going to give the edge to the winner here, which is going to be the emotions from Inside Out. With the toys, you hit an age where, like, whether your toys go in the attic or you give them away, you hit an age where you don't need them anymore and you pass them on, whereas the emotions are with you for your entire existence. So that's what's going to tip the scale for me. I think you agree. The winner this week is going to be, what is the more daunting? It's the fact that the emotions from Inside Out control your entire life rather than the toys are alive from Toy Story. So we're going to move into our final segment now before we close up shop for our main show this week. We're going to move into recommended movie. How this works is, each week we take it in turns, choosing a movie to review for our film club review show, which comes out on Thursday, that vaguely ties into our main review. So this week was Inside Out, and George, it's your turn to pick a film. So what have you picked, and what are your reasons for picking it?
It's a very easy choice this year. How many animated films have come out this year? 2. Are they Disney? Yes. So I chose Big Hero 6, and then I thought, you know what, Michael Giacchino did Dawn of the Planet of the Apes, so we're going to do that.
So we're going to do Dawn of the Planet of the Apes?
Yep.
Oh, that was a nice segue. You mentioned Big Hero 6 before this, so I was getting prepped to watch that, but, I mean, we did Rise. I'm sure we've got even more to say on Dawn, so it's like Inception. It's a long time coming, so absolutely, definitely looking forward to talking about that movie. So, yes, that was our main show for this week. Be sure to follow us on Facebook at facebook.com/cinemasavvy. You can find us at Twitter/cinema_savvy, as well as letterbox.com/cinema_savvy. Be sure to rate, like, comment, subscribe, and follow the channel. Stick with us, get involved, because we're going to be bringing you loads more reviews all over the summer and beyond. Let us know what some of your favourite films are. Let us know what you thought of Inside Out. Do you think it was a return to form for Pixar, or if you didn't care for it, still let us know. So be sure to come back Thursday for our Film Club midweek review show, which will be, as you just said, Dawn of the Planet of the Apes. As well as that, we're also going to be bringing you a review on the 4 Mission Impossible films in anticipation for Mission Impossible Rogue Nation. That won't be our Film Club review show or a main show. It'll just be kind of like a side little review that we just throw up on the channel as we run down those 4 films. So be sure to check that out in the middle of the week, as well as our Film Club show. So until then, thank you very much for listening.